My name is Daniel Thorsson. I'm an equity analyst covering small cap IT tech companies. So we have an impressive setup of companies over the 2 upcoming days. And I hope you all will enjoy the presentations and go away from these days with lots of new investment ideas. I will also take the chance to promote for the next event, which will be at the same place on the 4th and the 5th of December. We start off immediately. We have an intensive schedule, so we welcome Max Strandwitz, CEO of Mips, which have had a very impressive development, both operational and share price-wise in the last 2.5 years since the IPO in 2017. So let's start off with the first 20-minute presentation with Max.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Max Strandwitz, and I'm working as the CEO of Mips. I'll give you a short introduction of what Mips is and where we come from. So I start a little bit with the history. And a lot of people actually think that we are sort of a startup company, started only a couple of years ago, but actually it originates since a research project already in 1996. And it came out of a very frustrated neurosurgeon that had a lot of patients on his surgery table with severe brain damage. However, they still had a helmet on, and when he looked at their helmets, he didn't see a lot of impact. And then he understood that there is probably more things to brain injuries and brain damage than the helmet of those days were constructed to protect against. So he became very intrigued by these kind of injuries and the brain injuries. So he contacted KTH because he realized that it was impossible for him to solve this problem by himself. He needed more biomechanic knowledge and so on. And therefore he contacted KTH. He came in contact with Peter Halldin, who was working on a completely different project, and together they set up what was the origin of Mips, and they started to explore how to protect people in a better way, and that is the startup of Mips. So almost 25 years ago the company started, so it has a lot of history and also a lot of years of research. It has taken until 2015 until the company actually became profitable. So quite a lot of very patient investors that has supported the company during the time. And what we also have is, of course, we have a unique technology, a slip plane technology, which is superior today in the industry. We also have exclusive rights to KTH Finiment Element model, which is a model, a data model of the brain, which no one else in the world has. So, of course, that gives us a little bit of a head start. We have been validated, and also the technology has been validated by a lot of third parties. There is Virginia Tech in the US. You have also seen Länsförsäkringar and Folksam testing our technology and also presenting it that it is a superior technology. We are also working with all the key university around the world. We're working with Ottawa in Canada. We are working with Stanford in US, Dublin, etc., and so on. So we are always trying to stay connected to science. We never launch anything that is not scientifically proved that it actually works, and so on. And so we try to stick to the science and the history around that. If you look at our market position, we are the #1 brand in brain protection system. We do not really have any head-to-head competitor. If you take the total amount of competition that we have today, it's somewhere around 10% of our sales. So still we have a little bit of competitive advantage. We have today about 78 customers that we're working with. We only launch these numbers yearly. That's why I say it's more than 78, because of course the company is growing. And today there is more than 448 models on the market equipped with Mips. We sold more than 3.8 million units in 2018. We are currently present in 7 different categories. I will come back to that. And we are marketing 8 different technologies. Everyone thinks of Mips. They think of only a low friction layer, but we have actually 8 different technologies. And we can address a lot of different types of categories, which I will also come back to. We have the key brands on board when it comes to the bicycle industry. We have the 6 biggest brands on board, and they are also driving a lot of our growth. And what we want to do with them is, of course, to address their whole segment, or their whole assortment, from the highest price point with certain kind of solutions to the lower price points, to ensure that we can operate in their whole assortment. And what we do is that we present our solutions in a different way, but we do not compromise safety. So we don't think it's right that the size of your wallet should determine how safe your solution is. So we always try to address the same thing, but we can present it in a different way. When we look at how it actually works, I will just give you a short introduction. Like I said, Hans, when he started back in 1996, he evaluated how helmets are tested, and they are actually tested like this still today, is that you drop them straight down. If the helmet cracks, it's not approved, and if it doesn't crack, it's approved. However, there is a very limited of you people, when you're going out, you're skiing or bicycling, that you fall straight down. You normally fall with some kind of angle. When you fall with an angle, of course, that puts a lot of force to your brain, because inside your skull, your brain is floating in water. If I do like this, my head moves about, or my brain moves about 10 millimeters. If you get to a sudden stop, which is normally the case if you fall off a bike, you end like this, and then of course your brain the force needs to go somewhere, and then your brain starts rotating. The best case, you get a concussion. The worst case is that you get strain on your brain tissue. And that's exactly what we try to address. At the point of impact, when you're falling, we slide with approximately 10 to 15 millimeters. And that's how we try to reduce the force that otherwise will go into the brain. So that's what we work with. Very simple. That can be presented in a lot of different ways. Our cheapest solution, you see an injection molded plastic version that is fit for mass production. This one is a little bit more complicated technology, where you have it directly integrated into the padding. So that can be presented in a lot of different ways. And then, of course, if you go to internet and you read some forums, some people claim they have a natural MIPS, and that they have a lot of hair, or they put on the helmet without really putting it really tight, or they don't have any hair. That would be the natural MIPS. But think of the time when you have the impact is actually somewhere, or point pressure of something like 750 to 1,000 kilo. And try to move something when you have 10 guys standing on your head. It's impossible. So that's why there is a lot of misconception. We have worked, and actually a long part of our history has been about convincing the industry what MIPS actually is. We were helped significantly by the American football industry, where they had a lot of discussions around why concussions are dangerous. You have a lot of lawsuits in the US and so on. So that also helped us a lot. Out of our total sales, 75% of our sales today goes to the US market, or the US brands. It doesn't mean that 75% of our sales is in the US, but we are much more represented towards the US market, because they are much more mature when it comes to why this is dangerous. When you then look at patents is important. We are an ingredient brand company, but of course we are also protecting our IP. We have about 30 patent families today. We actually have a little bit more than 30 patents. The main patents which we are using today, which is the MIPS 2 patents, expire in 2030 and 2031. And what we do protect is that we have a patent covering the outside of the helmet. Then we have a patent covering between the hard shell and the EPS. EPS is the foam material that you have there. We also have a patent for the inside of the helmet, and then we have different other types of technology. So we try to have an as extensive coverage as possible. If we find something on the market that would complement our patent portfolio, of course, we will look into buying that. But we are always very active in terms of having as good patent protection as possible. We also have patented the way that we manufacture our technology, and we also patent some of the fixation mechanisms and so on in the helmet to make sure that we have as wide coverage as possible. We have been involved in 2 different lawsuits with positive outcome and so on. So of course it is an area where we have been active, and we will also be active if we need to going forward. When we look at our financial targets, we have 2 key financial targets. The first one is to achieve a net sales of more than 400 million SEK, which means if you take the 2018 numbers, that we need to grow with approximately 45% per year the coming 2 years. And the second one is to achieve an EBIT margin of plus 40%. We also have an ambition to give a dividend of more than 50% annually. If you look at our addressable market and our focus market, this was something that we presented together with the IPO in 2017. So we will give an update to this when we launch our new long-term strategy on the 20th of September. But this is how it looks at the moment. We have a total addressable market of somewhere around 70 million helmets. Out of those 70 million, we consider the 43 million to be addressable. And why do we consider it to be addressable? Those are helmets that are sold above $40. And US dollar is normally the currency which helmets are traded in. That's why I always talk about US dollar. And the other 27 million, they are sold in the so-called mass market channel. And given that we are charging a fee for implementing MIPS in the helmet, the financial doesn't work, and therefore we have excluded that market. Out of the 43 million helmets that we consider addressable, 10 million of those are in the professional segment. And when we talk about the professional segment, that is the military helmets, that is the other armed forces, it's fire squad, it's police squad, it's search and rescue, and so on. So far, we have launched solution, but we haven't had any real sales there yet. We have a lot of military helmets that are out for tests and so on, but not yet any sales. When we look at what we call the consumer market, we have the bicycle helmet. That's the biggest market, however, a relatively small addressable market. So 25 million units sold every year, and 10 million of those are addressable. That's by far our biggest market. A second very interesting market for us is the snow category, and that was also the first category we enter into. 6 million helmets in total, about 5 million of those are addressable. And then we also have the motorcycle category, also a very interesting category for us, with around 20 million helmets sold annually, and around 15 of those are addressable. This is actually a very fast moving or fast increasing category for us, but still from small number. And when we look at our strategy, what are we focusing on? First of all, is to grow with the customers that we already have. A lot of people ask us, how many new customers do you have? When we get the new customer, normally they don't result in a lot of sales because they are trying how MIPS works with their assortment. They launch a couple of helmets, and then when it becomes successful, they start penetrating the whole range. And that's also when we get access to a lot of more volume. So first of all, grow with the customers we already have on board. If you take the bicycle industry, we have the 6 biggest customers in the world already on board, and it's just how fast we can penetrate their range. The second one is to accelerate the growth in moto. Very important category for us. Difficult categories to entry, but a big market that we find very interesting. And the last one is to be able to enter into new categories. You have seen us launching some new categories like ice hockey, and we also launched our first construction helmets, which I will come back to later. So if you look at the total addressable market and where we were at the end of 2018, we had approximately 9% of that market. So despite that we are the biggest in the world, we are significantly ahead than the rest of the competitors. We still only have 9% of the addressable market. We have something which we call a very scalable business model. And when we talk about scalable is that we can have quite a significant business with a very limited amount of resources. So first of all, when you look at cost of goods sold, so the cost of our product, we have outsourced our business in China. So we are using 15 different subcontractors in China, so 15 different factories, and they are producing for us. And the reason of that is when you're growing 50%, we want to focus on what we do best, and that is to be world leading in brain science. It's not about running production in China. That's why we have outsourced that. And also when you're growing 50%, you will sit in endless capacity discussions, which we don't want to do. Selling expenses, we are operating as an ingredient brand. We have in total 6 salespeople entertaining the whole world, going around to all the different brands and so on. And we can do that because we have an ingredient brand model. We are investing quite a lot in the Mips brand. So 5 to 7% of our net sales goes directly into marketing. And of course, we will continue to do that. We are not doing end consumer marketing, but we are educating the industry. We are educating retailers to make sure that they can explain how Mips actually works. And you saw that also, when you take the 30 seconds and listen what we actually do, it's quite difficult to say that, no, I go for the less safe helmet. So of course, the sales pitch, making sure that everyone understands what Mips is important to us. Research and development, of course, we are an IP company. We'll continue to invest behind our products. We're investing around 5 to 7% of net sales. All the customer-specific development, you remember we have launched 448 models to the market. That is paid by the customers. We charge them for that, and the reason is not a huge revenue stream for us, but for us it's very important that we have them hostage and they pay us a down payment when they start up projects. Otherwise, all the customers will launch an enormous amount of projects and you never be finished. So that model comes from a time when we didn't have a lot of money, but it makes a lot of sense. And then the biggest part of our scalability, we have an infrastructure in place. We have the ERP system to be able to serve a lot more volume in our system. And that's also where the key improvement it comes from when it relates to the EBIT. If we look at the other part of the balance sheet, we have, in terms of inventory, we don't hold any finished goods inventory. We have some Mips unique components in stock, but no finished goods. We invoice directly at delivery, and we don't invest in any manufacturing facilities. What we do invest in is patents, because of course we want those to be as strong as possible. And we also invest in testing facilities, because if you want to be world leading, you also need to make sure that you have the world leading equipment. We have entered into some new categories during the year. First of all, the construction helmet that was launched in May. And it's actually, this is a market which we have disqualified because we have always looked at it as the yellow hard hats. There we couldn't make a lot of difference, and therefore we have not done any development. Now there is a new type of helmet coming, which is much more durable and where you can actually integrate Mips into the solution. So very interesting market for us. And we also launched our first hockey helmet. As you know, we have had a long patent dispute with Bauer. When that was solved, then of course we directly started to entertain the hockey market again. So we're quite happy about that. We have done two acquisitions. First of all, we bought Fluid, which is another technology, and that technology we bought because of the patents. It's a tactical acquisition for us. And then we also bought another company, and we did that because we wanted to have interest or access to a very interesting material. And then we will also see that we have been exposed to tariffs. Mips is not exporting anything in China today, but of course we are manufacturing in China and we are included in helmets. Helmets are since Sunday, so yesterday, impacted by, it was communicated at a 10% tariff, but now it's actually since Friday 6 o'clock, 15% tariff. That is not impacting us directly, but of course, if there is less helmets sold or there is disturbance on the market, that can have an impact. Then if we just quickly go into the first 6 months, so how are we actually doing against our financial targets? We have a net sale increase of 61%, 48% organic. Gross profit is up with 50 basis points to 74%. OpEx, we continue to invest behind our strategic priorities. Adjusted EBIT, 39.1%, so almost at the target. And if you actually look at the last rolling 12 months, we are at 41%, so ahead of the target. And we also have a good cash flow. So in terms of our key financial KPIs, we have a strong organic growth of 48%, EBIT margin 39.1%, and a cash flow, with a very strong cash flow of almost 32 million SEK. When it comes to the balance sheet and the cash position, we did pay a net earnings of 112% out to the shareholders this year, 63.2 million. We also done 2 acquisitions, 41.2 million invested. And despite that, we still have 166.6 million on the balance sheet with an equity ratio of 79%. And we do not hold any interest-bearing loans at the moment.
Thank you very much, Max. So a first question from us. You seem to have an incredible product, scientifically and customer base-wise. With that said, we saw that the stock market was hammering your share price by 30% in a day in March. That shaved off some 1.2 billion SEK of the market cap with the entrance of a competitor called Wavecell.
Yes.
So my question is basically, how is your visibility and knowledge about future upcoming research projects and future upcoming competitors?
Yeah, so of course, competitors will always come. And of course, we welcome competition. We have done this alone for quite some years. The launch of Wavecell, I must say that we were very shocked. Not so much about the product, because we knew about the product and we know about the performance. Those kind of products is already existing, and Wavecell is done by a 3D printed material that collapses at impact. There is even some solutions on the market today which have the 3D printed material with Mips included inside. So the technology as such, it's not the technology that's superior to Mips. However, there's a very bold marketing story. So for instance, they claim that you have a 99% risk reduction of concussions, and that the helmet is 48 times safer. And of course, if you communicate like that, then it's of course difficult to counter. We are testing better than them also in the official test and so on. We are not 99 or reducing the risk with 99% of a concussion. We are not 48% safer or 48 times safer. Anyone that has studied physics knows that it's impossible to eliminate forces going into the brain. I always talk about reducing the risk or reducing the force, because that's what we try to do. So we were shocked. Of course, we will be humble and always make sure that we try to counter those kind of things earlier. But we were not. We have never seen those kind of medical claims being made before, and I don't think anyone in the industry has done that.
Okay. And then we take a final one on the tariffs, because the stock market is very much focusing on the trade war. How could that affect you volume-wise in the short term, and how could it increase costs for you longer term?
Yeah, so like I said, we are not exporting anything directly. We are not compensating for tariffs, or we are not planned to compensate for tariffs. I believe that long term, the price will adjust with that. If it stays, you never know. Short term, it can, of course, be volatile. We have seen that in other industries. Last time, helmets were exempted because it's a safety product. This year, they also said that it should be exempted because it was a safety product, but somehow it was not taken off the list. So short term, there can always be volatility. Long term, I don't see that much of a difference. So we are not changing anything when it comes to how we operate. If our customers choose to go to another country, then we will just follow. We can relocate in a month, basically. So for us, it doesn't add a lot of cost, and it doesn't add a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll stop there. That was the 25 minutes for Mips and Max. After this, we will have Projektengagemang in this room and motion display in the other room. But first, we thank Max with a short applause, I guess.
Yeah, thank you.